Okay, this is number 8 here, and this is capacity utilisation. Now, capacity utilisation is, the definition is current output divided by maximum output times 100 over 1. If you have maximum capacity utilisation, that means you are using all of your resources at maximum output, therefore you really can't produce any more goods. Now, the key thing about capacity utilisation is if you increase it, you have lower fixed cost per unit. And if you can remember from unit 1, a fixed cost does not change with output. So if you produce many more goods, then for each of those goods, then the fixed cost is going to be smaller. For example, if you've got a restaurant for a night and it costs £200 to run that restaurant for that evening, because you've got to pay out, say, £200 in wages for the cook's wages, the waiters and the waitresses, right? If you sell one meal on that night, it's going to cost you £200 for that one meal in terms of the fixed costs. However, if you have 200 meals in terms of fixed costs, the fixed cost per unit is going to be £1. And if you have 400 meals, the fixed cost per unit is going to be 50p. So it brings home to you that if you can increase your sales and you can use your assets even more, then your fixed cost per unit are going to fall. And obviously, if they fall, then your profits will increase. So when you walk into an exam paper, you may well find the following. On there may well be capacity utilisation. Now in this one here, this is a railway line, or sorry, a railway operator, and this is their capacity utilisation, which looks, well, is very, very low. Ideally, the books tell us we want to be at about 85%. The reason why that often you don't want to be 100% is because the workforce will be working at maximum output all of the time, and therefore your quality may go down. However, on a railway line, you probably do want it at 100% because that means that all the seats are actually being taken. Now here, with an average capacity utilisation of this amount, your fixed costs per passenger are going to be very, very high. So therefore you definitely want to have more passengers, and this is reflected in the fact that you've also got a negative net profit margin, which means that the company must be losing money. So if we say that, immediately we combine data. We can analyse the data by saying, well, however, if we can increase capacity utilisation, which we have done here, then this is going to lead to a lower fixed cost per unit, and therefore this will lead to higher profits. And 50.4% is still very low, so we want it to be even higher, and it's even higher here. So therefore, I've just stood on my speaker, so on my microphone, sorry. So here the fixed cost per unit is going to be even lower. And we can see there is a direct relationship here between the higher the capacity utilisation, the higher the profit. So here we're moving into profit. So we then walk into the exam and it says, well, what should be the main operational objective? Well, one operational objective is obviously to increase capacity utilisation and therefore your fixed cost per unit go down. However, there are other objectives which you have in terms of operations management. They are quality is always very important. Reducing your costs is also important, obviously links in with capacity utilisation, but also the environment as well. So you have a variety of objectives. However, from this particular data, you can have one paragraph which says, oh yes, we can explain capacity utilisation and using the data on here and suggesting that that reduces fixed cost per unit, therefore your profits will go up. We combine data on here, so you've got a very good paragraph on that. Your second paragraph is about all the other objectives, about quality, percentage of trains arriving on time. Well, if that's going to go down, that is going to annoy your customers. And if your customers become annoyed, that's going to affect the quality and the brand image of the firm. So therefore we will get fewer customers in the future. Also, the labour turnover is quite high. This also may affect the quality that you're delivering because your workers may not be as efficient. They may not give as good customer service as they should. So quality is also important, obviously. However, in this case, it does appear that there is a very direct link between an increase in capacity utilisation and also profit. However, we should not ignore the other factors as well. there you go. On your last question, you got 15 out of 15. But the one thing that I was trying to teach you there was how to use capacity utilization in terms of answering a question. Hopefully now you understand the concept there. Thank you. Is number 9 on here, and here we're going to look at unit costs. Obviously, if your unit costs go down, then your profits will go up because it's going to be cheaper to produce each good. Now, the definition of it is just cost divided by output. Now, this particular example, this particular question was on the Eden project, which, if you don't know, is a great big glass house that exists down in Cornwall with lots of exotic plants in it. So how do we work out the unit costs here? Well, the only way of doing it was obviously to find total costs. That was relatively straightforward. 18.06, sorry, that was in millions of pounds, 18.06 million. And in 2006, it was 17.66 million. So obviously I will put those at the top of the equation and then divide that by the output. Now here the output happened to be in terms of the number of people who went to the attraction. So it was 1.18 and it was 1.16 because that in a sense is their output. And if we do that, then here it's £15.3 per person and here it's £15.2 per person. So the unit costs have fallen by 0.1. Okay, so that's unit cost. So previously we looked at capacity utilization. Now we've looked at unit costs, and obviously you want your capacity utilization to be high because then your fixed cost per unit fall, and you want your unit cost to be low. Just another quick thing I'm going to add on to here is the last question on this exam paper was, has this business become more competitiveness? How competitive is this business? Now, competitiveness is really, has that business got a competitive advantage? So if we look at all these companies on here, lower cost, cost minimization, think Ryanair, Primark, that's their big advantage, that their cost base is lower. Or Zara, because it's got high fashion and it's got lots of different fashion lines a year. Virgin's got a great brand. You've got a great brand, that gives you a competitive advantage. Quality design, Jaguar, Land Rover, obviously the Apple. So you can have an advantage in lots of ways, but then how do we relate that to this particular question on here? Well, okay, one thing we can say is the unit costs have come down, so that's an advantage to the firm, and if they continue to come down, that's going to be better for the firm. The average revenue per customer is also going up, so each customer is spending more money. So if their costs are falling and each customer is spending more money, then therefore their profits are also going to go up. This should obviously help the firm. The cash flow is getting better. Okay, it was very negative beforehand, but it's less negative. That makes the business safer, so therefore they might be able to invest more money into that business. The loans are going down, which also makes the firm safer, so it has to pay less interest on those loans. And customer satisfaction is pretty high, which would suggest that they've got a competitive advantage over other firms. Now, how do you analyse that? You just say, well, if everybody's very satisfied, therefore more customers will come back, therefore more customers come back, therefore you get more sales revenue. If sales revenue increases and you can reduce your unit costs and each customer can therefore spend more money, please note we are now combining data, then therefore the company is going to make more money, and if you make more money, then you can invest more money into the business, and you make more money, then you can sort out your negative cash flow, and hey presto, the business is going to do better and better and better. So once again, we can use these figures to help answer the question, and the absolute key on these papers, if you can use the data, then you're going to get reasonable application. If you can combine the data, which is what we have done here, then you're going to get good application, and you can analyze those points. You're going to get good application and good analysis, and then you can make a judgment to say, well, it appears that the business is moving in the right direction. The only thing that's going wrong is the customer numbers have fallen, but not by very much at all, but it's becoming more efficient, and therefore the cost will go down, and therefore you should make higher profits, and also they're getting more and more money out of each customer. So, and the customers are very satisfied as well, which is key for the future of the branding of the firm. Okay, so that's the Eden project. We're doing number 8, and we're still doing operations management, and looking at the numbers and how they affect things. Well, the operational targets, when you're doing operations management, you have certain targets that you want to go for, and they are things like a higher capacity utilisation, which is always a percentage, which we've just done. It's higher productivity, which is output divided by labour, and that gives you labour productivity. The higher your productivity, the lower your cost per unit will be. We can also reduce our unit cost, which is total cost divided by output. And we're also interested in quality, because we get greater quality, then we may be able to charge higher prices. We charge higher prices, then therefore our sales revenue may also go up. There may also these days be a target in terms of the environment as well. Okay, if you can remember all the equations here, capacity utilisation is to do with current output divided by maximum output times 100 equal to a percentage. Productivity is output divided by labour. Reducing unit cost is total cost divided by output, which gives off unit costs. And if you get quality, you can charge a higher price. You charge a higher price, therefore your sales revenue will go up if you have an inelastic demand curve. So there's a lot here, and then all of these things, if you can improve all of these areas, if you can reduce your costs, but at the same time create a better brand image for your firm and therefore charge a higher price, then you're going to get a higher profit, and that higher profit obviously will create a higher return on capital employed. And if you can remember what that is, a higher return on capital employed is when your net profit is divided by capital invested divided by capital invested times 100 over 1 times 100 over 1, and that is the big one. That is the big ratio to remember, and the return on capital employed is going to be affected by all of these things on here. Thank you.